Good day, fellow Jersey nerds, and welcome to episode 9 of Throwback Throwdown, powered by HockeyJerseyConcepts.com. I'm Ryan, your host, and on today's Throwdown, we're throwing it all the way back to 1996. No, we're not doing the 96 World Cup again, but we are looking at some very 90s jersey designs, and specifically the year 1996. So we have semifinal number 1, Calgary going up against Pittsburgh, and in semifinal number 2, Boston is taking on St. Louis. The winners are going to meet in the final of our Throwback Throwdown. If you want to take a look at these jerseys and follow along with us, links to pictures are available in the episode description. Joining us this week to determine our winners are Corey. What's going on?
Not much. I'm ready to throw down with some throwbacks.
What did you think of, without getting too deep into these designs, what did you generally think of 90s designs?
Some of them were great. Some of them were not. Some of them had character to them. Some of them had a distinct character to them that some of them have a charm. Some of them don't. I don't want to get too much into it.
Fair enough.
Some of them were so bad that they had a charm, and some of them were just bad.
Also joining us this week is Beepo. Beepo, what's going on?
Just throwing back, Ryan, in my new to me at least, Minnesota Wild original road jersey, or I guess the white version. I think it was home for part-time and road for other part-time. How about you, Ryan?
I'm doing good. 96 was probably a fantastic year for you. You were buzzing around town, just living it up, weren't you?
Ah, yes. I fondly remember that time. For those of you who may not get the joke, I was born in 98.
So Beepo's ready. Beepo's very familiar with these jerseys. So it should be a good podcast. Also joining us is Sean. Sean, you ready to throw back to 96?
Oh, yeah. We're going to throw back to a time when I was not around for 2 months of it. The rest of the time, I was a very intelligent infant. I remember my first words were, "Mother, hand me a jersey." And those Leafs rounded numbers are great. You keep those around. And what do you mean they're moving Hartford? Where?
Those all seem like accurate stories. I can't help but believe them.
Was your first word not? I thought it was black. No?
Black jersey, good. Yeah. I think
the Islanders in black? Hell yeah.
I think, you know what I think? I think there might be a coloring sheet where it's like color in the Islanders, and I got a black crayon. Handed it to the waitress, and they went, "Oh,
look what you did."
You did that. You did. Shame on you.
So the only reason that Sean likes the Islanders black jerseys is because it's kind of living out his childhood dream.
like my infant dream. No, my childhood dream was to wear the goat head.
How's that worked out for you?
They got rid of so this is back when I wanted to be an NHL goaltender, so I would have been like 8. And anyway, 2 years later they got rid of the goat head and replaced it with something better.
Better. All right. Well, we're all here. We're all ready. So let's get at this. Semifinal number 1, we have the 1996 Calgary Flames white jersey going up against the 1996 Pittsburgh Penguins white jersey. So looking at the Flames jersey, this is more commonly referred to as the podium jersey. So as I said, we have a white jersey with a full red sleeve running down the side. But the main feature is on the hem. So thick red stripe outlined in yellow, white, and black. But inexplicably, going through that hem stripe is a diagonal stripe and of the same pattern. And that goes up right to the logo on the front. It is the classic Flaming C logo. There's also sleeve stripes, but they only exist within the full red sleeve. And that is a white, black, white, yellow sleeve. So the numbers, actually, Calgary's numbers are kind of based on these numbers still. It was an italicized font, not really a block font at all, more of a rounded font. But still, Calgary's numbers are kind of based on these. And this was the first jersey that Jerome McGinley wore as a Calgary Flame. Looking at the Pittsburgh Penguins jersey, this one is more commonly referred to as the RoboPen. So we have a white jersey. The yolks are yellow, and they're also in the shape of a triangle. They're outlined in white and black. The cuffs are yellow, white, and black. And then the numbering, it's kind of got this wider block font for the TV numbers on the sleeves, and then a standard block font on the back. Again, the RoboPen logo on the front, and then the hem is yellow, white, and black. So most notably, this was kind of the Jaromir Jagr captaincy era, but also the Lemieux comeback era. And it'll be interesting to see how this jersey does. But let's start off with the Calgary Flames. And Beepo, we'll start with you, your review of this jersey.
Now, I quite like this jersey whenever I was a kid because, I guess it kind of has that edginess to it that kids like. Looking back at it now, it's all right. I mean, it's so close to being, not great, but it's so close to being good. The striping, especially if you look at the hem, is really nice. I really like the pattern of it. I think that's honestly something that they could bring back today. I wish there was a little bit more consistency with the arm stripe and the pattern in it. Podium stripe, that's the thing that's really 90s about it. It just doesn't really work as well. But other than that, it's quite a solid jersey, I think. And the pants design, I actually really like the pants design too now that I see it. I don't know if I ever really noticed that about it before.
Well, yeah.
I think that's a really unique feature and I like that.
So if you look at the pants design, it's black pants, but then running down the side, consider a thick, solid stripe. But instead of it being solid, it starts off red, then halfway it cuts off diagonally and becomes yellow, cuts off diagonally again, becomes black for a thin stripe, cuts off diagonally again and becomes white for a little bit thicker stripe. So yeah, you're right, Beepo. It is definitely a very interesting pant design, and actually a cool pant design. I'm on board with that one, but
fits really well with the jerseys.
I'm personally not loving the jersey. I thought when it came out, it was just being. Even when it came out, I was like, wow, that's really kind of 90s. I hope that doesn't stick around. Luckily for me, it didn't stick around that long. So I am not a fan of this jersey. Sean, what do you think about the Flames white jersey from 96?
I'm a big fan of this set, unsurprisingly. I owned both at one point. I currently own the red version, and I love it to death. Yeah, I like the color balancing on it, to be honest. I think that if you put that on a simpler pattern, it would look friggin' amazing. It's probably the best balanced that the Flames colors set as it is has ever been. My biggest problem with it comes down to just the template, honestly. There's way too much space under the arm thing. Like, just because of how baggy the sleeves are, there's just way too much space. And what's funny is this would look way better in, like, the ID Zero template because the arms are a lot thinner. This pizza's fucking nasty. I'm sorry.
Never enjoyed
fucking. This pizza's fucking nasty. I'm sorry. And the other problem I have with it is the podium itself kind of squishes the primary logo, and I think that's the biggest problem most people have with it. Is that honestly, the idea of it isn't a bad idea, but I would have had it it cuts off where the hem stripe cuts off, and you make the primary logo a little bigger. That I think would work, and it would actually look really cool. One thing to note is that on the red jersey, at least in the starter version, it's a separate piece of fabric that cuts around to the back, so it's a lot larger than it may look in some photos. And I think that that's something that works well with it. But yeah, overall, big fan.
All right, Corey, your thoughts on Calgary's white 96 jersey?
I'm not that big of a fan of it myself. What Sean said about the logo, the size of the logo is true. Every time I see a picture of it, and every time I find one for cheap on eBay, automatically I think to myself that it's a youth jersey because of how small the logo is. And I just, like I mentioned at the beginning, some of them have charm, some of them don't. This is one that I think doesn't really have charm. It's stuck in the 90s. It looks 90s. There's not a huge amount of people that want to see it back. People tend to, when you talk about Flames, they want either the original design or the horse head to come back, but you don't really hear people wanting the podium to come back. It doesn't really have the charm that some of the now granted some of the more ugly jerseys from the 90s, but this one just, it was a 90s jersey. Its time came and went. It's not bad. I just am not personally a huge fan of it. I think the striping on the sleeve is weird. It doesn't match the hem. I'm not sure how anything can match the hem because of that diagonal stripe, but it doesn't look right to me. Anytime I look at it, I can always find something different every time I look at it to nitpick at.
All right, Beepo, let's go to you to start us off with your review of the Penguins' white RoboPen jersey.
Now, this jersey still has a bit more of a 90s look to, or has a bit of a 90s look to it to me, but not quite as much as that Calgary one. And it's probably just because they haven't really used it since the 90s or the early 2000s. I'm sure that's the only reason why it looks 90s, because if they brought it back today, I'm sure it would look fine. This jersey is much better than the Flames one. I'm sorry to spoil my pick, but I hope that would be obvious considering who I am. But the striping is nice and consistent, even if the widths aren't as consistent. The pattern themselves are consistent. I believe this uses the font that the Penguins used up until they switched back to their 90s set. It's hard to tell with just the 6 and the 8. Because I know there's a couple little details on like the 7 and stuff like that. I can tell the difference, which I think is a good font. It fits the set. It fits their other sets that they wore up until the throwback ones again. The shoulder yoke is probably the main thing that's really 90s about this one. If they toned that down a little bit, I think it would look great. And color balance was nice. And I know Steve has more of a sentimental attachment to this one than I do, but it's still a nice jersey.
Yeah, I agree that the shoulder yokes, the kind of triangle shoulder yokes, are the best part of this jersey, and they help the RoboPen logo kind of tie into everything. It's 90s, but it also could work as a kind of a one-off, bring it back to celebrate an anniversary type jersey as well. I think also the basic block numbers help with that to help this jersey not age poorly. The block numbers do that. If it, say, had the original, what was it, the original Edge font, not necessarily the numbers, but the font they used for like the Captain C. If it had something like that, more of a rounded font, it probably wouldn't have aged as well. The RoboPen, the RoboPenguin logo is kind of has the charm, as Corey was talking about previously. Not a fantastic logo, but charm from when it's from. So for me, this one's going to beat Calgary, but we'll get to that. Let's go to Sean, with your thoughts on the Penguins' white RoboPen jersey.
Oh, this is a tough one because one day I will love this jersey. I'll think it's the most overrated piece of junk you can think of. I love the RoboPen itself. Fantastic logo. Heavily dated, though. My God, this thing aged poorly. But here's my issue with it. In 1992, there is a black version of this jersey that exists. They don't use it, okay? That jersey is brilliant. I love that thing, not just because it's black. But what always ruined the RoboPen white version for me was that, the color balancing is so off on it and so unbelievably off on it. The yolks and the arms, they should be black. I love everything else about it, but I can't get past that. I am sorry.
Of course you want it to be black.
Hey now. Yes, that's a fact. And what's interesting is that, but the interesting fact about that was that the white script version does not suffer from the same issue.
All right, good stuff there. Let's go to Corey.
Yeah, this one's one of my favorite 90s jerseys. I was fortunate enough to find one that was brand new and a cheap deal on it too. So I jumped all over that one when I found that. I just think that, like it was mentioned, it could be a jersey that was used as a one-off. I think the logo could be used as like a secondary logo again. I don't see it being brought back as a primary ever again, but Yeah, it's just, the logo is a little bit dated, and it's kind of huge contrast from the cartoony kind of penguin that we all know, and then they go with this slick looking realistic penguin logo. But that jersey itself was my favorite Pittsburgh jersey for the most part, the 90s. I know their original design was in the 90s a bit, but I wasn't a fan of the script one. I wasn't a fan of the black Robo pen. This one it's just a really nice jersey. It gets a lot of compliments from people when I wear the jersey. It's remembered fondly, even though the team didn't have the success that they've had in the past and have gone on to have now. It's still remembered pretty fondly by people.
All right, it's time to choose our winner. We have the Calgary Flames white jersey and the Pittsburgh Penguins white jersey, both from 96, going head-to-head. Beepo, who's your winner?
As I've already mentioned, the Penguins are, of course, my winner.
And I am also taking the Penguins heavily in this matchup. Sean, who's your winner here, Pittsburgh or Calgary?
I'm taking Calgary heavily, might I add. But it's in a losing effort. I know it's in a losing effort.
Corey, is it a tie, or do you have Pittsburgh moving on?
No, it's not a tie. I'm going with Pittsburgh as well.
All right, so we got Pittsburgh's white jersey from 96 in the final, and it's going to be going up against either St. Louis or Boston. Let's take a look at Boston's black jersey from 1996. So, as I mentioned, black base. Again, we have a full sleeve here. It's a yellow full sleeve or gold, whatever you want to call it, outlined in white. Within the sleeve, we have a black stripe outlined in a white stripe. The kind of, I guess, the Pooh Bear logo. It's not really the Pooh Bear logo, but it's on the shoulders there. And you got a standard block font. The hem stripe is a gold stripe outlined in a thin black stripe and then a white stripe. Again, pictures are available in the episode description for this jersey. This jersey is going up against the St. Louis Blues blue jersey from 1996. I guess you'd call this the Gretzky Blues jersey. But this has the, as I mentioned, blue jersey. It has red hem and cuffs that are cut off on an angle by a thick yellow stripe. And then we have 4 thin yellow stripes above that, separated by blue. We have the St. Louis Blues logo that they used for the 80s and 90s. And then the fantastic feature on this jersey is, because of those angled hem stripes, we have 2 different size numbers on the back if a player wore a double digit, and they are also angled off. So if you look at Gretzky's 99, that first 9 in 99 looks absolutely squished on the back of the jersey, but that was the idea. So Bruins black jersey going up against St. Louis Blues blue jersey. Beepo, start us off with your thoughts on this Bruins jersey.
I've really never liked this jersey set at all. I can't really speak to it because I wasn't really huge into jerseys at the time, and for whenever these came out, I was not alive. But I feel like these are the type of jerseys that probably look dated the moment that they were unveiled. There's just always been something about them. I think it might be that full length shoulder yoke that I just don't like about it. It's always just reminded me of like amateur hockey, like the youth teams around my area. Maybe because at least one of them wore this template, but it's always just looked way too dated to me for me to really like it. I think it's close to working, but it's just not there. I've always liked the one that they've worn before this much better, and even the ones that they're wearing now much better. This is probably one of my least favorite Bruins uniforms that I can think of.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad jersey, but it's definitely a mediocre jersey. And for me, it's kind of the black sheep of the Bruins jersey family. It never really fit into the scheme that they've always gone with. It just felt like the Bruins fitting into a different template is what it always seemed like. So I was never...
It almost looks like change for change's sake.
Yes, I would agree. So I was never a fan of this jersey. Sean, your thoughts on the Bruins black jersey?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with the Beepo on this one. I am not a fan of these at all, and they were dated from the moment I saw them. Now, what's funny is that I would not consider these 90s jerseys, and if you told me that they came out with these in 2001, I'd believe you. They didn't. These jerseys were around for more than a decade, and they weren't very good. I'm sorry. They really weren't. I've never been a fan of the Bruins having a lot of yellow with their black jersey. I'm big on those Ray Bourque era jerseys, just lots of black, nice yellow, white highlight, lots of space between it. And these jerseys had none of that. To top it off, the updates that the Bruins did to their logo in the Edge era were so desperately needed, but nobody knew at the time. And the shoulder patches that they came up with for the Edge era just outshined the Pooh Bear logo, because the Pooh Bear logo, despite its absolute brilliance as a primary logo, is like the worst shoulder patch ever.
Corey, your thoughts on the Bruins black jersey?
Yeah, I was never a fan of this jersey either. The sleeves are what kills it for me. I think the rest of the jersey's okay, but the sleeves just totally ruin it. If they went with a more traditional yoke and sleeve, you might have had something a little bit better, still not better than what they had before or what they have now, but not as bad as what they ended up coming up with. And like Sean said too, I never realized for the longest time that it came out when it did. I always thought of it more of a 2000s jersey. And yeah, I also, from the moment I saw it, it looked like a dated jersey. Even before I knew anything about jerseys, it looked like it was dated.
All right, so we might know where this is already going, but we do have to review the St. Louis Blues jerseys from 96. So, Beepo, lead us off.
This is another one of those jerseys that I think had a lot of potential, but it didn't really reach it, mainly due to the 90s. I really liked the striping pattern itself and the whole, the instrument pattern. I can't remember. It wasn't a guitar. Was it bass? I don't know. What are the sort of strings pattern to it? I really like that. I don't love the red. I don't hate it. I think it worked fine in the 90s. It also worked a lot better on some of their previous jerseys or the white version from this set, where the red was a lot more toned down. But the red as it was great for the 90s, and it worked okay for the 90s. The numbers, not great, but again, kind of just adds to that 90s flair. I think there could have been much worse things. And overall, this jersey is... Oh, also, before I forget to mention it, the shoulder pad, the trumpet, love it. I would love it to come back even today. Sans red. But this jersey is good, but very 90s-ified.
Yeah,
Could make a much more better alternate today if they just kind of took out some of those 90s features about it.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely a timestamp of when it came out, and it didn't last incredibly long, but it was completely appropriate for the era. And for me, this one has the charm. Where other 90s jerseys, they look awful and they don't hold up over time. This one that's what the Blues wore during the 90s. And, we got the music note kind of inspired striping there, bass guitar, whatever we want to call it. Tons of red. Why is there so much red? Because it's the Blues of the 90s. And as Beepo mentioned, the trumpet logo, the trumpet roundel logo on the shoulders is still a very strong logo to this day. So that would be neat to see it come back. The numbers on the back, when they get squished, that's so weird, but it's so 90s. And that's what gives it its charm. So I actually like this one. I like that it's from the 90s. I like that it stayed in the 90s and that it's sold as a vintage jersey. And it's just playing its role perfectly. If it doesn't come back, that's perfect. We don't need it to come back. It's doing just fine as a vintage jersey as is. Sean, your thoughts on the Blues jersey?
I shouldn't like it as much as I do because it replaced my favorite Blues set they ever wore. I'm a big proponent of the Blues should wear red in small amounts, but man, do I love these. I love everything about them. They just lasted long enough. That's just it. They stopped in I think it was 98, 99. They stopped at the perfect time. They could have, you could slap an NHL 2000 logo on them, and that would be the exact point. when the clocks rolled over for the 2001 season, these things had to hit the road and hit the road fast, but they didn't, and that's why I think people like them so much. I like, honestly, one of the underrated features of this jersey, just that thick yellow collar with just enough red. That's always been a drawing feature to me, is that yellow is never discounted from this jersey. And in fact, it plays a pretty prominent role here. A lot of mock-ups of this jersey, the red looks a lot larger than it actually is. It doesn't ever overpower the jersey. The numbers, they look fine depending on the number you get. This might be a jersey you go strategic numbering for. You might want a specific number because of how it looks. Even if the player wasn't too big, you want to see how 47 looks on there. And that shoulder patch, what else can be said about it? Bring it back today. Even as a helmet logo. Doesn't even have to go on the Blues shoulders, just somewhere. It's a beautiful logo. The team still ships that logo out whenever they want to for vintage stuff. People want it back. Bring it back now. That's all I'm saying.
Corey, what do you think of the Blues 96 road jerseys?
It's my favorite of all the Blues jerseys. I don't know why. My brain knows that it's not their best, but it's my favorite. It's just got there's something about it where you look at it and you know that it's not good, but it's like the ugly stepchild that you feel like you have to love, even though you kind of the ugly stepchild might be not going to talk poorly about children, but some
Corey hates kids. You heard it right here on the podcast.
It's just I don't know how to explain it. It's just so perfect yet so wrong. The fact that it's so far out there, it really drew me to it. And I mean, I was pretty young when they were wearing this. I was young enough to remember it, but as a kid, it really drew me to the team. It was something that really made them stand out. I knew who the St. Louis Blues were before majority of the league because of that jersey. So there's a lot of sentimental reasons why I like it. I don't even feel I need to defend my reasons for liking it. I think I like it because I like it is a good enough reason for me.
Damn right. All right, so I have a feeling where this vote is going, but let's do it anyway. Beepo, who's winning here, Boston or St. Louis?
Definitely St. Louis.
One for St. Louis. I'm also throwing a vote for St. Louis. Sean?
All right, my vote is for St. Louis. Going to make it a clean sweep. I got a good little roll on the chair there. What?
A clean sweep when Corey hasn't even voted yet.
I think we know.
I kind of just want to say Boston.
I'm pretty sure we know.
Here we go.
I'm going to say Boston just to make Sean wrong on the podcast.
Oh, man. First time I've ever been wrong on the podcast.
So we know Corey likes the Blues jersey better, but just to make Sean wrong, I put him in the Boston category. But St. Louis wins 3-1. So our final for this week's Throwback Throwdown is Pittsburgh's 96 white jersey going up against St. Louis's 96 blue jersey. Pick your winner and describe why one is better than the other. Beepo, go ahead.
If we're just going for how much 90s charm it has, I'm going St. Louis, but yeah, I'm not going for that. I'm going for the Penguins, part because of hometown or favorite team bias and hometown bias, part because it's just a much more timeless jersey and a much nicer jersey.
All right, I'm going to hold off my vote. I might let myself be the deciding vote here. So Sean, we'll go to you, Pittsburgh or St. Louis?
Well, nothing's going to beat the 1996 Slovakia World Cup jersey for a fourth week in a row. But if I had to pick a runner-up, Calgary. No. St. Louis. St. Louis by far. It's not even close in this case. There's only one of them I want to be brought back out of any of them, to be fair. Yeah, St. Louis gets the vote. And fun fact, the current Blues design was originally introduced as an alternate in 1997-98. Despite one very subtle difference in that the arms are curved instead of angled. And if you ever find this jersey, is very rare and very valuable, and I really want one. So send it to, this is the part where we put in our HJC post office box, or a P.O. box as it's called, for those of you who don't flub their lines and want to make it sound natural. You know what? Send it to us, and we'll send you a sticker.
Just address it to HJC HQ, Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, and it'll get there. No problem. No problem.
It'll get there eventually. I know Rick down at the post office, and he'll get it to me.
All right. So Sean's taking St. Louis. Beepo is taking Pittsburgh. Corey, who are you taking?
It's close, but I'm going to go with St. Louis. I like both jerseys a lot, but just for my own childhood memories, I'm going to go with St. Louis.
All right. I am torn here. I like both jerseys for completely different reasons. And just talking about the St. Louis jersey has made me like it even more. But I do own this Pittsburgh jersey with Ron Tugnut on the back. I want to own this Blues jersey, both versions, the blue and the white one, with Gretzky on the back. I do not know who to pick here. Let's see. I gotta make a decision for the sake of the podcast and for the sake of the podcast. I'm calling a tie. These jerseys are both equal, but this podcast deserves a winner, so I'm giving my vote to St. Louis. St. Louis wins this week's Throwback Throwdown by a score of 3-1, beating Pittsburgh in the final. I guess behind the scenes it's a tie, but officially it's a 3-1 win for the Pittsburgh Penguins, or for the St. Louis Blues, pardon me. Pittsburgh did not.
Man, that's only the second time that Pittsburgh's been beaten in the final.
What else were they beaten in Throwback Throwdown recently?
I'm talking about the 2008 Stanley Cup final.
Oh,
they've been to 5 other ones and won them all.
Okay. All right. Fair enough, people. That is all we have for you this week on hockeyjerseyconcepts.com right now. We have the Quebec Nordiques unused logo redesign competition, and those entries are due by March 22nd. And we just announced that beginning on March 22nd will be our next competition, and it'll be a basic NHL redesign. It'll be a San Jose Sharks redesign. So heads up on that. That begins on March 22nd, and the entry phase will be a 2-week period beginning March 22nd. That is all we have for you this week. We hope you enjoyed Throwback Throwdown. I'd like to thank all of our co-hosts for being on this week, and to stay up to date with all of our podcasts, be sure to subscribe to the HJC Podcast Network to get notifications when Jersey Nerds Podcast comes out every Tuesday and when Fake or Authentic comes out every Thursday. So thank you to all you Jersey Nerds for listening. Goodbye, everybody.